I'm Joe LaPresti from St. Pete Designs. How to test your site. This is just a quick overview, basically, on how we run a test. First thing you want to do is use an accessibility code validator. I use the one from the W3C because they're pretty much the end-all be-all for accessibility. You'll find other code validators, other things that try to emulate what the W3C does. But the W3C is the top dog in this fight. All right, after you run your accessibility validator, code validator, use your automated testing tools. And I'll dive a little deeper into this. Testing tools like Axe, Google, Wave, all kinds of stuff. Then you want to go through and manually test your site. Because we can test with automated tools all day long, but that only catches the low-hanging fruit. If you're catching stuff on your automated test, then those are things that really should have been caught during development anyways. So you cannot rely on just an automated tool. A lot of people will go through and run some of these automated tests that I offer here, and they say, well, I'm good, so I'm good, and they ship it. That's not the case. All right, don't forget to test your site on Android and iOS. Android and iOS have a lot of accessibility tools that I'll explain, that you can just go to your site on your phone or your tablet and run your tests. And I like that whenever possible, I've met through my travels a lot of low vision individuals. So what I'll do is once we get done with the site, I'll ship it over to them and they'll just navigate like they normally do any other site, and then I'll send back a little document explaining some issues that they had. All right, we're gonna get in some free automated testing tools. All right, this is from DQ, the Axe tool. This is my personal favorite. It works with Chrome, Firefox, and Android, and it's known for very few false positives. Nothing's perfect, but out of all the automated testing tools out there, this gives you the least amount of false positives because they err on the side of caution. They say if we don't know, we're not even gonna announce it. All right, here we go, the Axe tool. You go to their site and download it, and it's just kind of sticks it up here. It's this icon right here, but you don't click that icon. What you do is, I'm a window user in Chrome, so I'll right click to inspect, and it'll open this up. Then you come down here to your Axe tool. This is where it puts it. And this is it right here. So then you just hit analyze. I mean, it's just that simple. And it spits out some stuff for you right here. Now this is WordPress.org. I'm gonna pick on them a little bit. They're actually not too bad. You can see here, elements must have sufficient color contrast, and it's saying there's 6 violations. And then what you do here is it comes standard with just a highlight, or I'm sorry, it says highlight, so you gotta click it, and then it highlights. And this is it telling you that this is one of the 6 that it says is not color contrast minimum, which you can tell that just by looking at it. And then another cool thing up here is it doesn't just tell you your violations. Your violations are your fails. Those are the ones that the law says you gotta have. Okay, it also gives you needs review, some things to look at, and best practices. So if you're trying to really increase the experience of the end user, you want to look at all of these. But you know, the real important one are the violations. And it'll come down here also, and it'll give you code snippets of where it's at and stuff. So it's actually very, very useful. All right, another tool I like to use is Google Lighthouse tool. And I just want to mention every tool I offer here is completely free. Nothing here costs money. It just means it's freezing in here.
Freezing.
I'm not scared, I'm just freezing. All right, Google Lighthouse gives you, one of my favorite things about it gives you a score, 1 to 100. Clients like this because you can, when you go into their site first, you can say, hey, you know, it was a 20, and I'll take a screenshot. When I get done, obviously it'll be 100, I take a screenshot. They like that. They can see where they were and now where they are. Another really amazing thing is it offers an 11, or I think it might be a 12-step process for your manual testing. Again, you can automate until your fingers fall off, and it's not going to catch even the majority of things. You have to manually test your site. Little fun fact, 75% of websites score less than a 50 on Google Lighthouse. That's amazing. So if you can score anything above a 50, you're in the top 25% of the internet. Think about what that does, how that separates you from your competition. A lot of big companies are using web accessibility to separate themselves, to have that competitive advantage. Microsoft, all of them. It's really getting there. All right, Google Lighthouse. Same thing, you just want to download it, and then what you'll do is, I'm a Windows user, so I right click and inspect. Get your little arrow keys up here, come down to audits. And here, Google Lighthouse does a lot of audits: performance, progressive, best practice, accessibility, SEO. I unclick all of them except for accessibility. Now you can obviously use those if you want, but I'm interested in accessibility. And then you can throttle it as well. And that lets you know, because if you have bad Wi-Fi connection or something, someone's trying to go to your site, if you got a lot of pictures and videos, it's not going to upload those. So you're kind of stuck with, like, they can open with HTML and stuff like that. So, all right, here we go. Here I just have accessibility, and a lot of times I just pretty much do no throttling. You just click the button, run on it. I mean, this is all simple stuff. And this is the big thing that I learned. It was hard for me to find this information, but once I figured out how to do it, it's really easy. But that's when I was like, I got to get this out to everybody, because we all know WordPress runs the majority of the internet. I think it's over a third now. That's huge. And everybody here is WordPress. So if it's up to anybody to fix this, it's us. It's us that's in this room. All right, so I hit the button. It gives you a 94. It's a good grade. And then it comes here, background and foreground colors do not have sufficient color contrast ratio. You can hit this little button to expand it, and it'll tell you where it's at and stuff. And you'll start to notice if you go to the same site and you're testing with these tools, you'll start to see things pop up regularly. We had contrast issues with Axe. We're having contrast issues with this. It'll probably happen in the next tool. So you start to realize what's going on. All right, let's see here. Now, the real unique thing about this that I like, it gives you additional items to manually check. Now, this is not all the items, but it's a great starting point. It's a great starting point. And don't let all of this scare you. You can figure out a lot of this stuff with just a few swipes through your site, and I'll show you that later on in the manual testing portion. All right, another tool I like to use is Wave Evaluation Tool. This one, you can either have it as a Chrome extension, or you just go to their site and enter your URL. I have it a Chrome extension, so you can just go to the site and press the button. And I personally use this for checking my header levels. I'll use it for some other things, but that's the majority of it. So here we go right here. They added up here, Chrome extension. You can just press that button and it'll run its test, or you can go to their site and just put in your URL. Either way is fine, but this is what it spits out. All right.
I know I'm ignoring everybody on the right side of the room, sorry. How's my back look?
All right, here we go. So this side here says 0 errors. We're gonna go to the next one here. This is the flag here that you wanna click the second icon down. And another good thing here that I don't have in the screenshot is right here, filter. You can choose what you want to test for. This is full, so this is WCAG 2.0, WCAG 2.1, Section 508. It's pretty much all accessibility issues. On the next slide, you see I have just selected Section 508. All right, here we go. Skipping header levels, and this is what it's pointing out. It's pointing out right here, hey, you don't have an H2. You went from an H1 to an H3. You're not supposed to do that. It's not a fail, but then you come down to H2. So H1, H3, H2. And the reason why that is because low vision individuals, when they're using their assistive technology, they're navigating sites using headers and stuff. So they'll go through their headers. It'll obviously hit all the H1s and hit the H2s and hit the H3s. It doesn't just go in a row. So when they're clicking tab, they're gonna go H1, H2, and then back up to here. Now that means it's not a logical tab order anymore. You're out of whack. So you want to fix that. I personally would just have this as text. I wouldn't have it as an H3 header, so then it just falls in line. But there are times that you can do that. You can have an H3 closing the section above and have an H2 opening the new section. So there are caveats and stuff, but the only time an H1 should be used is at the very top of your page. That's it. You shouldn't use an H1 anymore. It'll also, tells you other things, redundant links and all kinds of other stuff. One thing you have to understand with these tools, I would say, other than Axe, but it's even possible with Axe, is false positives. I can't tell you how much time I spent on false positives until I started realizing that's just what it was. So, a lot of these, unfortunately, I just don't really like. I'm not gonna say don't use them or they're always wrong, but I use each tool for its kind of specific things. And this one I'll go through to check all my H1, all my headers, because it labels them very nicely. I'll look at some alt tags, or some images, and anything missing alt text, stuff like that. All right, accessibility audit, totally. Now this is from the Khan University, but we have a plugin on our repository and we've added it to our plugin. So this is to the plugin on the repository. What you do, once you add the plugin, this is our plugin, so we add all of these things. This is just the accessibility audit. You just come here, check this, and hit save changes, and that's it. Now what you want to do is go to the front of your site. You have to be logged in to your back, to the WordPress, as administrator. As long as you're logged in, you go to the front end, and it puts this little piece of CSS right here. So you'll click that, it opens up. And what I like about this is two things. One, the main thing is it allows me to look at my information in chunks. A lot of these testing tools just kind of like Wave. I don't like how it just throws everything at you. For instance, Wave, I'm looking at this like, okay, it's demoralizing. So I like to come here, I like this tool because now I just want to work on headers. So I'm going to click headers, okay? And now what it's going to do is it's going to pop this up over here, and it's going to explain where my fails are, and it's going to highlight it right here. So it's telling me non-consecutive heading level. This has been fixed, just letting you know, but this was an H4. This was actually with a page builder that we use, and it was, we had to go in and like write code to fix that. It's weird. But it's really good. And now I move down. Okay, I'm gonna hit my contrast. Now it's gonna tell me what's wrong, and I'm gonna highlight it, and this is it right here. And the real cool thing about this that I like is it gives you suggestions. It says that white is the green is a little too light, so try this darker green, and that's gonna bring you into 4.51. Your ratios are 4.5 to 1. For images and things like that, and 3 to 1 for text. So it's saying that this is 4.01, which you have to be at least 4.5. So this gives you a suggestion, and it worked. This is the suggestion I used. I went in there and added this, and I'm compliant now.
Excuse me, what's the name of the plugin that you're using here?
This is, well, our plugin is WP Accessibility Tools and missing alt text finder, and that's where this is. But you can just Google, because this is from the Khan University, so you can Google Khan University totally software if you don't want to use our plugin. But we don't ask for anything. We don't even want your email. It's just on the repository, download it for free. We ask for nothing. So
this is your plugin, or is I'm sorry.
this is in our plugin. This is part of our plugin.
So what we're looking at is your.
Yes. Yeah.
What is your plugin called? If I want to find it again. Sorry.
WP Accessibility Tools and Missing Alt Text Finder. Kind of long.
Oh, it's just okay. It's not your
Yeah,
plugin.
yeah, no, it's one long one, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Well, it started as a missing alt text finder because when we were remediating sites, one of the most time consuming things was finding our pictures and adding the alt tags. And then once you add them to the media, a lot of them don't shoot it to the front end. So you gotta go find it on the front end and do each one. And I was like, there's gotta be a better way. And there wasn't. So we built this, and now this brings all your images to one, and you can click a button and it'll have all your images missing alt text at the top. And you can just enter it and hit update, and it sends it back out. So it's very useful. Okay, now we got link text here. Again, it's telling me my problems up here. What this is you gotta have descriptive links. So what I've done is I come up here and it says to contact us, or I forget exactly what it says when to contact us, call this number. That whole thing is a link now. You know, and as it tells you here, that's just not, that your text is unclear, it's not descriptive enough. Alright, now another really cool thing I like is this down here, this experimental. What this does is this allows you to hover with your mouse, say over this image, and it's gonna tell me what the alt text is. So this is what the screen reader is gonna read. The best way to do this, and I'll explain a little bit later, is just to get a screen reader. They're free, NVDA. I mean, I'm a Windows user, so I use NVDA, but every OS has their own screen reader and they're all free. The best thing to do is just get the screen reader and play with your site. That's the best thing. Second best thing is to use this. You just scroll over stuff, and as long as an alt text pops up, then the screen reader should announce that. All right, I'm going to talk a little bit about manually auditing your site. Okay, don't be scared. These are just things you want to check. Okay, now I can go through with 1 or 2 swipes of a page and figure out just about all of this. So it looks way worse than it actually is. Okay, the page has a logical tab order and focus state is apparent. That means when an individual is tab navigating, they call it, just using their keyboard to navigate your site, just like we're talking with the headers, it has to be in a predictable manner. So typically it goes like a typewriter, down to the right, down to the right, down to the right, or down all the way down. You don't want up here, down here, over here, over here. It's just that there's no logical order to that. And also make sure the focus state is apparent. Most new themes have this in it. Just want to double check. This is when you land on something with your keyboard that you have a focus state on, a little box around it, something, anything. Okay, headings, don't skip levels, H1s above H2s, above H3s, etc. We talked about that. You know, the way WordPress.org was, it's not a complete fail, but I don't like it. Like I said, I would have changed it. All right, visual order on the page follows the DOM. When you're making your HTML and all that stuff, you're building a site. A lot of times we get to the site and then we're looking at the front, we're like, well, I want this button over here, or I want this list ordered a little different. So we just use some CSS or whatever we got to do on the front end. What that does is that changes the order between the way it was built and what the individual sees as they're navigating with their assistive technology. So don't do that. An example I use, if you have 3 buttons in a row when you build it, once your site's done, you look at it, you're like, well, I want the second button to be last. So when an individual, if you do that with CSS on the front end, so when an individual is navigating that, he's still, on the DOM, it's still gonna go button 1, button 2, button 3, but now because we switched it on CSS, it's gonna go button 1, button 2, button 3. It's gonna go back and forth, and we don't want that. So just make sure your page follows the DOM order. Make sure all your custom controls have ARIA labels. ARIA roles and labels. Make sure they work. Make sure they work. I've seen a lot of people have ARIA labels or skip links and they don't actually work. So just make sure they work. When you get there, you know, make sure your screen reader is announcing the role or label. Make sure your skip links work. Actually hit enter. Interactive elements, announcer, purpose to assistive tech. You know, again, this is where ARIA roles can come in. Whenever possible, use your native HTML. Don't try to get crazy or try to outthink the system. You'd be surprised on what you can actually do with your base tools, with what you already got. Okay, your off-screen content is hidden from assistive technology when necessary. Typically, you know, we build them on our desktop, and when it goes to a mobile, the screen shrinks. Well, sometimes you'll have stuff that comes off screen, which is fine, but you gotta make sure that's not reachable when they're tab navigating. So if someone's tab navigating and you've got content off site, off page that's reachable, they're focused, they're not gonna know where they are. They just won't know where they are because they'll be in some random area. All right, make sure all your forms work properly and have error handling when necessary. This is very important. I'm sure we all have contact forms on our site and everything, so make sure they're labeled properly. And I want to say that placeholders are not considered labeled properly. Typically, the screen readers, assistive technology, do not announce placeholders. Placeholders, if you're looking at an input value, the placeholder will be inside the input value. That's a fail. That's not going to announce it. You want it on top of it. You want it as an actual label. And then if you have required info, like a lot of us do, and if someone doesn't hit that, doesn't enter the required info, you gotta make sure that that error comes back to them in text form, saying, you know, your name was required, and then have that box highlight right on there. Visually check for contrast ratios. Now, again, you know, our accessibility, our automated testing tools, we saw. Wait a minute, Joe, our automated tools checked for that already. No, they didn't. They checked for some of it, but they don't check all of it, especially when you have an image. We all have these nice big hero header images. When we put text on top of it, two things can happen. One, the automated tools aren't gonna really know whether that's contrast ratio or not. For instance, you have a guy with a business suit, and you got the white part of his shirt coming out here, and then you have white text over that. It might be good all around everything else because he's got a black suit, but over that segment, you can't read text. And there's no automated tool in the world that's gonna tell you that that's a failure. You've gotta use your own eyes here to see that. Let's see here. Okay, now this is kind of the process that I like to do when I'm doing my manual tests. Take my mouse, throw it in the drawer, because too many times I just reach over for my mouse, and 5 minutes later I'm like, oh my god, I'm using my mouse. So I just get rid of it. Okay? Use buttons, your tab, your space, your enter, your arrow keys. Just navigate your site. Try to use everything. Go everywhere. Use all elements. Use everything and navigate your entire site. Make sure you can reach and use every single function, especially these dynamic functions that we have nowadays. Make sure the tab order, tab focus follows a predictable pattern. You know, again, left to right and down. So, you know, just one swipe of your site using tab and all your keys, you can figure all this stuff out pretty easily. Step 2, make sure everything can be read by assistive technology. This is where I go in and I use NVDA, Chromebox. You know, Apple has their own, everybody has their own. These are free. And NVDA is actually built by blind developers. So in my opinion, that's the best one to use. And you know, these are free. So what I do is I'll give you a little trick, because what I always tell everybody is know where the off button is on these screen readers before you hit on, because you will start to panic. And everywhere you scroll, it just keeps yelling at you. So what I do, a little trick at NVDA, is I didn't actually download it. I downloaded it, but I didn't accept all of the little side things, so I could just open it up and it works. And when I'm done, I could just hit, I don't want it, and it just shuts it down. I'm not looking for the off button, freaking out. And you can use that alley testing tool that I showed earlier, where you scroll over stuff and it tells you. All right, testing for iOS. They've got some good tools here. Again, use your automated testing tools. Those are your friend. Always use your automated testing tools first. The reason why I say that is because you'll find a lot of redundant stuff. And while I'm looking at one page, going through all of my tools, I'm getting more and more familiarized with that page. So I'm able to fix problems and realize problems much better, as opposed to using one tool across the whole site, come back using another tool across the whole site. I like to focus on one page. Page is done, get it out of the queue. Page is done, get it out of the queue. All right, utilize Mac Xcode simulation. Here's a link to that for that. You want to test and debug with iOS accessibility testing voiceover. That's very good. And then, most importantly, use the built-in features of the iOS device. When you go into your phone or tablet or whatever, you'll have accessibility features there. They all do. Use them. You'd be amazed. And then I just threw a link down here for other info for everybody. All right, Android. Kind of more of the same, just some different tools. Use your automated tests. Use them, love them, know them. Okay, use your Android accessibility scanner. This is pretty cool. This is actually it's on the Play Store or whatever Google is. You download it, and then you just go to a page on your phone or tablet, and you hit this button, and it just runs an automated test on it. It's actually very useful. Use the built-in features of your Android, and then use the UI automated viewer. Here's a link to all that as well. So this is all, again, free tools, and we're using native stuff here. This is stuff that they give us to use. You know, I wish someone would have told me that a couple years ago. It'd have saved me a lot of time. All right, here's a bunch of free tools. I'm gonna get into the resources and stuff for you guys. Again, it's all free. I'm not affiliated with any of these except down here. This is our real big WordPress accessibility tools. And this, I took the missing out because it was just too big. Okay, so Axe Chrome, we talked about that. Wave, we talked about that. Google Lighthouse, we talked about that. Contrast ratio checker. This is very useful. Actually, it was so useful. It's my favorite one. I added that into our plugin. But you don't have to use our plugin. You can go here to just contrastratio.com and you put in your contrast ratios and tells you whether you're failing or not. It's very, very useful. And then this is our tool. It's completely free. We don't even ask for an email. And this is, like I said, has the missing alt text finder. It has the totally testing software I explained. It has the contrast ratio checker, and then also has the WCAG 2.1 checklist from the W3C. What I did when I went to W3C, it was actually pretty difficult for me to understand a lot of that talk in there because it's all legalese, or maybe I'm just a knucklehead. I like to think it's just legalese talk. So I went through and I kind of dumbed it down as if I was reading it. And I just kind of summarized each one, and I made an interactive checklist. So I did this so everybody's development team is on the same page. Everybody knows what's accessible and what's not accessible. If something's checked on that checklist, you're good. So we would send our developers, hey, just go grab something on the checklist and do it. And they would check it off. So everybody's on the same page, very useful. Then I also have a tab in there for a bunch of, a lot of this stuff actually, a lot of useful tools and links that I put in there. All right, some more tools. Now, if there's one thing I can get anybody to do when they go home on their site, it's add this right here, this plugin, userway.org. I have nothing to do with this company. I get nothing, I want nothing, nothing. Okay, it's just great. You go to our site and see it in action, stpetedesign.com, STPETE design.com. And what it'll do is it puts a little icon, a little piece of CSS down in the corner of the page. So an end user can click that and a window opens up just like I showed you on my testing software. But it allows that individual to do things like increase font size, desaturate, fix contrast ratios, set up his HTML, do all kinds of awesome stuff. So if you're not going to fix your site, at least give the end user the ability to do it themselves. So it's very, and I think they do require an email, but that's it. It's still completely free. Ask everybody in this room to do, because we all want to help, right? We all want to help. Okay, I'm going to take that as a yes. All right, accessibility statement generator. This is from the W3C. Now, there's lots of accessibility statement generators out there. The W3C is the place to be. This is the ones who made the WCAG guidelines. They've done everything. So just get it straight from them. And what this does is this will just ask you, take you about 15 minutes to fill out, ask you a series of questions about your accessibility on your site, and then it spits you out a PDF. And you take that PDF and add it to your footer or wherever you want. I put it in the footer. And this is very, very valuable. In my opinion, you get the most value out of this because it gives the end user the ability to reach you or your team and tell you where your problems are. I own a restaurant, and I have for a long time. So I've dealt with the ADA space with the brick and mortars. And I've found with angry customers that the majority of the problems can be solved immediately if they have an outlet to speak to somebody and they can get it resolved to their satisfaction at that point. Majority of problems, and that's what this does. This tells the individual what you're good at, what you're bad at. Most importantly, it says if you have a problem, contact us or whoever. I put my name up there with my email. Contact me with a problem, and then we can work through that problem. If I can't help you immediately, I will help you immediately, but we'll fix that problem eventually. Let's see here. We got the NVDA. We talked about that. This is their website. This is fantastic. If you're a Windows user, this is the one I recommend. The screen reader. Chromebox. That's okay. There's some issues with it, but it is what it is. Okay, resources. Here's the actual WCAG 2.1 guidelines from the W3C. What happened was there was a potential of a whole bunch of guidelines to be put out there. Excuse me. And what that would do is that would give us, everybody in this room, your own set of rules to go by. And you can imagine how difficult that would be for the end user. It just wouldn't work. So they put together the guidelines. and now that's become just a standard. And, again, it's legally speak, so it's a little bit difficult, but it's not really that bad. DOJ withdrawing their recommendations. It was supposed to be law, I think it was beginning of last year, to where every site had to be accessible. Right now, it's only law for government agencies, anybody doing contract work for the governments, and I don't wanna say every nonprofit, because I'm not a lawyer, but every nonprofit I've seen has to have it. I mean, if you're getting money from the government, you need to be accessible, and tax breaks are money. So, okay, this is an article of the 2,200 lawsuits. Comparison table, section 508. WordPress accessibility, they actually give you good information. Who'd have thunk it, you know? Who'd have thunk it? But they actually do a good job. And this is the actual, they call it the refresh of the section 508. This is just the actual law that went into place last year as like December 20th or something, that says all government agencies and everybody needs to be section 508 compliant. This is a pretty cool, it's ADA, web accessibility by state. And so if you go here and then put in your state, it'll give you the laws that pertain to your state specifically. This is amazing right here. This is amazing. This will give you 50 cents of every dollar you spend, up to 5,000 spent or $10,000, up to 5,000 back or 10,000 spent on your accessibility needs from the government. This is just what this is. When we deal with clients, first thing that comes out of, they're worried about, rightfully so, is the money. Well, how much is it gonna cost me? How much is it actually gonna increase my business? Is it gonna actually help? Am I gonna get sued? So, I mean, honestly, at that point, I kind of feel like a mechanic. You take your car in, you're like, I got $100, and they're like, okay, well, it just happened to be $99.99. It's just the same thing. I just feel like I'm being looked at like I'm ripping them off. So I always offer this, and that tends to make a lot of people feel better. And this works for your brick and mortar too. This is not just digital. This is any money spent on ADA, on accessibility, web accessibility, brick and mortar, doesn't matter. All right, that's it. Questions? Yes.
Are these slides accessible anywhere? Are you posting them?
I don't know if I've sent them into the WordCamp yet. I'm sure I will. If not, I'll definitely tweet them out. I mean, if you go to our website, we have a ton of videos on there.
What's the website again?
stpetedesign.com, STPETE design. We got a ton of videos. I got some other ones on there as well. So, do we have any questions on accessibility? Yes, sir.
So you got customers that spend all this money on design and brand guidelines, and then you tell them, oh, the color contrast, what do you do?
You tell, yeah, I mean, obviously the best case scenario is to include all these in the build and, during your project, because it really does add very little time and money, to your project. But at the end result, yes, you're right, and we've got plenty of those. What we do is we'll tell them, you're just gonna have to go with a little different shade, or you're not gonna be accessible. It's your choice. I'm not gonna cram it down your throat. But yeah, you get that a lot, where they spend all this money, and then I gotta come in and say, hey, your purple sucks. And they don't like that, so.
Right.
Yes.
So I know we are at WordCamp, all of these tools, most of them are specific to WordPress, but do you work with any other platforms or any other?
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah, no doubt. I prefer WordPress. I mean, I started in WordPress, and that's what we do. So when we remediate, if it's not WordPress, I add extra time because we're not as familiar. I can't just lickety split fix the problem. I got to do a little digging and diving.
It takes more time than.
Right, and really a lot of times if the site's big enough, our solution is to let us just rebuild it on a WordPress site. Really, because by the time you pay thousands of dollars for an audit, and then we talk with you and your IT team and tell you how to fix it, you gotta spend thousands of dollars to fix it.
Right.
We could have just rebuilt it for a third of that, and you're good, you're solid. So, yes, ma'am.
Could you go over that part again about why you shouldn't have H1s in certain places? Is it just confusing people, or?
Sure, well, the H1 tag is primarily made to describe your page. Like your H1 title should be the main description of your page. And you really only need that one time. And then I use all my H2 as my subheadings. Everything else below that, like for a body of content, will be headed with an H2. So basically your H1 should almost mirror your page title.
But if
Yes.
you have like a bunch of sections on there, I mean, if you have like a section of an H2, H3, and another section H2, H3.
Yes, the caveat is if they're going out of order, we'll just say in your scenario, the H2, H3, H2, H3. If the H3 is closing that body of content, and then the next H2 is opening the next body of
When
content.
you say opening, closing, you're saying using HTML,
You're not literally opening, closing, like you just have a box of content, and then you'll have another box of content as you scroll down your page.
right, but are you talking about semantic HTML, like using a section or an article? Is that what you're talking about?
I don't understand, I'm sorry.
When you're using HTML, you can use an
Mhm.
article, you can use a section.
Yes,
Is that what you're talking about?
yes, yeah, your sections, yeah, for your content, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. That's about the only time you want them out of order, is if, you know, one's closing the section above, and then an H2 would be opening the next section,
Got it.
so. Yes, ma'am.
So, for me, I have a classic, what do I call it, table of contents.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm using, it's like, H1 or H2 and then smaller ones and then the bigger ones again. So that sounds like that's a really bad problem, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. You do not wanna do that.
Use headers for styling, use CSS for styling.
Oh, interesting.
That-
Yes, absolutely. Now this is from my other talk here, or from my other accessibility talks. I'm gonna just put this up. This is good picture taking material. This is just the top 11 things I typically find when I'm auditing a site. So, yes.
So all these things, this kind of a combined question. Number one, what level does this get you to? Because I know there's different levels. So I've had a couple people, I'm starting to get more at our agency, asking us. I know we're probably not, ADA compliant. What would it take for you to do it? And so what should be my answer on that? And then also, like, is there a way, when you get someone who asks you to do this, do you provide, like, is there some tool that makes a really nice report, or do you compile your report from all of this? Or is there one tool that I can just run and put my logo on top? And then the other thing is like when they do it, like how do you determine how much it's gonna cost? Like that whole piece, the
Right.
business piece.
All right, well, let me try to unwrap this
Yeah,
here.
this is business piece, like fixing this for people, making money.
Okay, no, there's not one tool to put everything together. Well, we use like Microsoft Word, Microsoft Office, and then we'll go through all the tools, and then I just transfer the information in our way that we do it. As far as pricing, you have no idea pricing as far as remediation goes until you get into it. So what we do is we say you gotta get an audit first, which is gonna cost. And then at that point, when we deliver our audit, we'll deliver an estimate for remediation. What was your first question?
Oh, what level does this get you?
Okay, well, there's 3 levels with WCAG, A, AA, AAA. Section 508 compliance says you need to be at least WCAG AA compliant. So if you're gonna be compliant, it's gotta be at least AA. AAA is very hard to get to. I mean, it's possible in some scenarios, it's not possible in some scenarios. But Section 508 specifically, which is the law, says that you have to be, they refer to WCAG. They say you have to be WCAG 2.1, A and AA compliant to be Section 508 compliant. So when someone says, you had said something that struck me, when someone says, I wanna be compliant, how do I get compliant? That's such a huge question. You don't have the answer to that. You gotta run an audit. Or, I mean, a lot of times I'll just run some quick automated tools, take some screenshots of my acts with the drop-down menu. Listen, you got 70 violations on just your homepage. You need me. You know, that type of thing. But other than that, you gotta dive in and figure it out.
So do you guarantee them, like when they're done, you say, I'm gonna get you AA? Like when I'm done
What-
with this job and you pay me,
Yeah.
you are AA and then you do that compliance thing?
Once I remediate it,
Yeah.
during an audit, no. When I remediate it and deliver it, I guarantee it's compliant up until the day I send it to you. I am not guaranteeing it after that day, because people add content.
Who knows what they're doing?
Who knows? That's right, and it's got my name on it, so, yes.
What's the difference between WCAG 2.1 and 2.0?
The difference, the
Like
major
functional.
differences are for mobile. When 2.0 came out, mobile wasn't a big thing, but now mobile. So gestures, more, it just has to do, most of it has to do with your mobile.
Thanks.
Yes?
I had a question, and I just forgot it. It'll come back.
All right, yes, ma'am.
Is there a resource of somewhere, of somehow, if you want to contact people with these actual disabilities, to be able to get them to test your website? I don't know, like a
I mean, I know
database
that there are
thing?
companies out there, they charge big money.
Yeah.
So what I've done is just going through things like this and like the National Federation of the Blind. I've just met people and I'm like, hey, would you ever mind doing a little side work? And they're like, oh yeah, I'd love it. And so that's kind of how I've put together a team. There are companies out there, but they want a lot of money. They want a lot of money.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I got it. When you do your audits, are you doing them from, I guess, a series of the tools that you outlined, or, you know, I guess whatever you
Yes,
homegrown or whatever? But do you find that you are able to use one tool and then compare its results to the results you get from another tool?
Yes.
And then consider averages and that sort of thing? So it's kind
Yes.
of an involved process to do an audit. It's not just.
Oh,
throw a
no,
tool
no, no.
and
Yeah,
use a little-
absolutely. I mean, on average, I take anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes per page,
Okay.
looking over stuff.
And it's a per page audit, not a
Per
per
page.
site audit.
Per page, that's right. That's right, absolutely. Yeah, and in the order that I explained them, Axe is my go-to tool because of the non-false positives. So I use Axe, and then anything that Lighthouse pops up that wasn't on Axe, anything that Wave pops up that wasn't on Axe, I look at that with the skeptic eye. I say, wait a minute, that didn't pop up on Axe. I don't think that, so I'll look a little deeper into it, and 99% of the time, it's not an actual fail. So Axe is kind of my go-to. There's lots of other ones. I mean, I use Dino Mapper. I didn't include in here because that's a paid tool. That's not really as well, but the developers like it because it spits it out in a more readable form for them, so where they can just go in and start checking off stuff. It's kind of like a code validator. Kind of does the same thing. So hopefully that answered your
Yeah,
question.
that's good, yes.
Okay. Do we have any more questions?
Wait, did you just say really it takes you 20 to 40 minutes per page to fix?
On average. So when I'm doing an estimate on how much time it's gonna take me to audit, I'll I try to use scraper tools, but there's just no good scraper tools out there. So the majority of the time I look at the pages manually. I open them up and look at them and just get a rough estimate. This probably, sometimes I spend 5-10 minutes on a page, sometimes I spend more. If it has a lot of dynamic functions and stuff on there, it's gonna spend more time on there. But yeah, on average, that's how I quote it. When I look at the pages, I say it's either a small page or a big page. This much time or that much time, and I add up the time at the end, and that's what it is.
What would you say are the main culprits, like the things that you keep finding over and over again that are the main issues?
These right here. Like alternative text for images is major. Contrast ratios, I'm not sure where that is on here. That's huge. A lot of themes just spit out gray text. It's like, that should be outlawed. Like never ever use gray text. Does anybody here use gray text? Don't even answer that. Just say no.
How dark? How gray?
4.5 to 1. You need 4.5 to 1. I use black text. I mean, that's just what it is. I mean, don't use gray.
5,
Use
5,
gray
5,
text.
5, 5, 5?
That's me, though. That's me.
Well, one thing that I've been seeing a lot is this design trend from the last few years, now not so much, which was with the higher resolutions, the font being super thin.
Right.
So it's not only the color, but
Right.
the fonts being super thin make the contrast go like way down. So
Oh.
I don't know if the tools measure for that as well, if it is just the color.
No, the contrast is just your color, but let me show you this here real quick. This is another talk I do for accessibility here. I'm really sorry, I'm not trying to flip all over the place here.
You're wrapping up, right?
Yes, yes. So here, right here, your text spacing. This is what it looks like regular, and this is what you want. And this is good for Google SEO because there's more time on page. I'm gonna get fatigued with this. I'm gonna stay on your site longer with this. So, all right, I think I just got kicked out. I think I just got kicked out. Thank you. If anybody, you grab a card, I'd love to help you afterwards. Send me an email. I'm not a lawyer. I won't start the clock. I just answer questions. If there's any lawyers, I apologize. You're amazing.
But don't you often feel that you should be charging like a lawyer and you know,
Yeah,
like?
yeah, but then, you know, if I'm helping individuals like you are gonna help more people, I got no problem with that.